It's a Canada case study, and I met William, who will be speaking first, in Valencia in Spain in June. There's about 19 of us there. There's 2 or 3 old school hacks, including Alistair, sitting at the back, who got me invited, thank you. And there's a whole mix of people, including Rich from Brilliant Travel Media, John O'Nolan we talked about this morning, WordPress expert, Lizanne was there, Gary was there as a blogger, Annie was there from The Telegraph. A whole mix of people, and it was one of those projects. You put everybody together, learn about what other people are doing, stop worrying about what you're doing, just listen to what other people are talking about and where they're developing. And William was one of those guys, and he was on the team, and I learned that he was director of digital at British Columbia in Canada for the 2010 Olympics, which is quite a responsible job to have. He's now moved on. He's now formed Think Social Media, based in Vancouver, and he's working with DMOs, tourist boards across the globe. I think he's representative of Canada, particularly, possibly along with Spain, as 2 of the countries that are most progressive in social media. So I'm going to ask him to start the session today to talk on that point. Ladies and gentlemen, William Bakker.
Well, thank you very much. And speaking of cooking, I'm actually having the pleasure of couch surfing at Stephen's couch, actually the spare bedroom. And he made me a lovely breakfast yesterday with toast and tomatoes and mushrooms and fried eggs. So you know you're moved up from beans to breakfast now. So yeah, my name is William. I'm from Think Social Media, and digital marketing agency for the tourism industry. We're based in Vancouver. We have an office in the States as well. We're opening in Amsterdam in January, and hopefully in Sydney, Australia shortly after. What I want to talk about is a couple of things that I've learned while I was with Tourism BC during the games, and sort of how it shaped our thinking when it comes to social media, and particularly when it comes to destination marketing. But since there's a lot of travel writers and bloggers here, you know, there's probably some points that I can make there as well. So the 2010 Olympic Games were in Vancouver last year in February, and it was a great time to be in Vancouver during the Games, particularly because everybody at Tourism BC, we've been waiting for this moment, planning for it for years, and we had all these strategic plans and all this marketing that we're going to do, and you know, then a few things happened that threw a few curveballs at us, but we still managed to do a lot of really interesting things. Of course, it was also really cool from a personal perspective. Now, I was born in Amsterdam, so that means that I was at every speed skating event. Well, actually, it was only at one, and I don't know if you remember the particular event where our Dutch speed skater, who was going to win gold for sure, jumped in the wrong lane and got disqualified. That was the event that I was at with my whole family. So it's something that we will talk about for the next 50, 60, 70 years, though. So, you know, I have one of those I was there moments. So when you do destination marketing around a big event, it's really, you get sort of, you know, washed in this ocean of media that is really about the athletes and about the sports. But a really big opportunity is just before the event itself, where the focus of media and the focus of the attention of the world in the build-up is really on the destination. Where is this actually happening? Because there are no sports-related stories yet. So a second challenge that we had at Tourism BC was that Vancouver is over here. British Columbia is this massive landmass, it's like half the size of Europe. And everybody outside of Vancouver was really concerned that the marketing was going to be really focused on this one city in this massive place. So how does the rest of the province benefit from the games? So we used the Torch Relay as a vehicle to really highlight the communities and all the different regions of BC through YouTube. So a number of years ago, we started experimenting with video content. We made a few really beautiful documentaries, as we call them. Our ad agency created them. You know, helicopter shots over vineyards and interviews, and you know the deal. Very expensive. Well, there are so many really cool things in the province that we really wanted to highlight. So we came up with this new concept, which was called a field reporter concept. So we hired 10 videographers, and what they do is they go around the province, they have a video camera, and they have to do everything themselves. So, you know, they're going to have to shoot themselves, and then they shoot the experience. As they are doing it, come home, edit the video, maybe put some music to it, and publish it on YouTube. So very cost effective from a DMO perspective, and very appreciated by the traveler, because the content is a lot more experiential, a lot more authentic, and the viewer can really picture himself in that experience. This is not the DMO who hovered a helicopter over the ocean for a few weeks waiting for that whale to jump up and breach for that picture-perfect moment. This is actually something that I could experience. So we made a lot of these videos, and they were quite successful. So we decided to use the concept for the torch relay by sending this guy over here, his name is Chris, around with the flames as it was traveling through BC and in fact Canada, because the Canadian Tourism Commission jumped on board, and we managed to get him to some of the bigger cities throughout the country and do his reporting from there. But in BC, he was reporting every single day. He would get up in the morning, film the flame leaving the town, and then he would go do a tourism experience to sort of highlight some of the things that you can do in this particular part of the province, sort of describe the culture of the place, and then catch up with the flame again and finish his segment. Rush to his hotel, edit his video, post it on YouTube, and do the whole thing the next day again. And maybe in between get 2-3 hours of sleep. So I'll show you one of the videos in a minute. He created 48 videos throughout the country, and during the torch relay, the few months of the torch relay, generated over 500,000 views, which was quite remarkable, something that we didn't expect. And both consumers, but also more importantly, the tourism industry was really, really happy with what we did, because it was a way to really feature all the great places in BC. So here is just, I'll show you a clip.
Day 3 of the Olympic Torch Relay, and we're in the vibrant harbor city of Nanaimo, and we're going to catch up with the flame from the east coast of Vancouver Island to the west coast. So come along on the journey.
I'll stop it there. You can go to youtube.com/2010torch to watch all of Chris's videos. But you can see that this guy traveling by himself, making all these videos, editing them at night, every single day. The quality was just remarkable, and he's still a videographer. People hire him now, so I'm kind of happy to know that I launched this guy's career as sort of a video blogger for the tourism industry. Now, the one thing that happened as a side effect that we should have known, but at the time we didn't realize, was that Chris was also creating himself a fan base. And we were starting to get emails, and of course this guy was on the road. He didn't have time to respond to all this. So back in the office, we were starting to almost become his manager. So the best example that I have was from this class in a tiny town called Half Moon Bay in British Columbia. The teacher emailed us and said, "This is fantastic. Every morning I'm showing the latest Chris Wheeler video in my class, and I use it as a way to teach my children about all the places in the province." So of course, by the time the flame got to Half Moon Bay, Chris stopped by the school class to shoot a little bit of footage with them, interviewed a few kids, which then, created this outpour of support from all the parents, because, the kids would come home and say, I met Chris Wheeler. Who's Chris Wheeler? He's a celebrity. He's on TV. So that was something that we learned and something that we, now leverage. So that was the Torch Relay. So now we're moving on to the actual games where we had an accidental social media success. And I think that is very illustrative of social media, because social media, things happen and you need to jump on it and take advantage of an opportunity when it is presented. Not all of it can be planned for years on out and carefully crafted and manipulated. So this was the BC, the British Columbia experience in Vancouver. Every destination has its own little plaza during the games. You'll experience that next year. And this was the one for British Columbia. And we wanted to make it cool. So one of our PR director, he had an idea. He said, we have zip lines in BC, particularly in Whistler. It's tremendously popular. Why don't we ask this company to make a zip line across Robson Square, where the British Columbia experience is? So that's what we did. We managed through some miracles to get through all the bureaucracy, I was going to say. And here it is. Zip lining during the Olympics over Robson Square in Vancouver. Thousands of people below you. So awesome is what he said. So that was another Chris Wheeler video. Of course, during the games, we kept producing content. But what happened as a result of this, remarkable experience is that, people started to share this on Twitter, on Facebook, and I just did the zip line. I want to do this. Pictures on Flickr, hundreds and hundreds of them. Videos on YouTube. I think that half the people who flew down the zip line had some sort of camera in their hands to video all this. So it became so popular that after a while, the lineup was so long that you had to line up in the morning in order to get in the afternoon. So 4, 5, 6 hour lineups were very, very common. In fact, you could have driven to the actual zipline experience in Whistler, come back and still beat people who were standing in line. So it became quite crazy. And of course, we jumped onto that and, started to share content about the real ziplining experience and what have you. We posted, ziplining on the homepage of Hello BC, our consumer website, and really sort of started to jump on this opportunity. So when the Olympics were over, we thought, well, that worked really well. Let's see if we can do that again. So we took the whole thing to San Francisco downtown, build it all back up and see what would happen. And of course, the same thing was happening. Twitter exploded. People were all lining up again for hours. Lots of YouTube videos. And what happens when you have a lot of social media success? That's when traditional media eventually will catch wind and start to report on it as well. So, there is a great video of the news anchor of the local TV station doing the weather report as he is ziplining down downtown San Francisco. So we really, like I said, we capitalized on the opportunity by highlighting, ziplining just because people were talking about it. And, just as a resulting web traffic, you can see that, there was this huge spike during the Olympics for people looking at our ziplining content. And then you could see that it actually held pretty steady even after the games, as people were still interested and hopefully traveling to BC to actually do the real thing. Now, ziplining wasn't the only remarkable experience during the games. We also have this hot dog stand in Vancouver, and it's called Japa Dog. So here are 3 examples. A Japa Dog is a hot dog with Japanese toppings. So you have wasabi hot dogs and spicy tuna hot dogs and hot dogs with seaweed, all kinds of crazy things. Might not be for everybody, but this also became very popular to talk about during the games. Even Al Roker, who's a famous media person in the U.S., he tweeted about going to Japadog and having this I guess you call it food. And again, it's exploded in social media. People were talking about it, lining up, and then eventually newspapers were starting to report on it as well, and it became a TV, all those kind of things. So the learning really here, the zip line, the Japadog, is that you really need to give people something to talk about. And that's what we try to tell our customers. That's what we try to tell the destinations. That's what we try to tell tourism operators. Find ways, give people a reason to talk about some of the things that you have so that they'll make other people aware in their particular communities. So we call these passionate communities. So during the Olympics, everybody in town had a particular passion, and it was a passion for the games, a passion to be there. And some of the remarkable experiences within this community were the Japadog, were the zip lining, but of course the Olympic events as well. So a passionate community can be for a short period of time, or it can live for a long time. Passionate communities, we were just mentioning the Formula One trip in Valencia. I'm a huge Formula One fan. I got invited to Valencia to join the blog trip and experience the Formula One. To me, that's a remarkable experience. I didn't even have to think twice about going there. So your destination can be a passionate community as well, or your business. This is the Calgary Stampede, and the Calgary Stampede is an event, a rodeo event in Western Canada. Every year it's been hosted for 10 days, and about 1 million people walk through the gates. And people are very, very passionate about the Calgary Stampede, particularly people who live in Calgary. It's much more than a rodeo. There's music, there is a fair, all those kind of things. But these fans are all gathering on a Facebook fan page. And effectively, this is where people hang out to share their passions. So here's an example of a woman who posts a picture of her daughter going to school for the first time wearing a Calgary Stampede backpack. So this is something that is remarkable for this particular community. For us this doesn't mean much, but for all these fans of the Calgary Stampede, this is something that you want to share with like-minded individuals. Or the customer from Germany who visits the Calgary Stampede for the very first time and post on the fan page, hey, I'm coming, I booked my ticket, I booked my plane ticket, I'm coming, I'm so excited. And everybody from the community jumps in and welcomes them and, probably even agrees to meet at the event. And that kind of shows you how to treat a Facebook fan page. It's not a database marketing vehicle where you gather as many fans as you can so that you can then start marketing to them with commercial messages. You really need to start building a community so that the community will effectively do the marketing for you by sharing remarkable content with themselves, but also with their own personal networks. Now, within every community there are influencers, and I think that's where travel bloggers have a big opportunity, because we were talking about niche blogging, and I think that is really, really important. Because if you can find a niche, report on it, become an influencer in a particular passionate community, then eventually businesses who are associated with this community will want to work with you in order to get their message out. So I told you that remarkable content gets shared. So here's an example of a local DMO in BC, and they ran a contest targeting specifically, hardcore skiers. And what did they do? They created a really remarkable prize. You got ski passes for about a dozen ski resorts for the whole winter. You got a week's worth of heli skiing, cat skiing, all accommodations paid for, and what have you. So of course, for this kind of contest is something that people will talk about. Within the ski community, this spread like wildfire. You can win a whole season worth of skiing for free. People will share that with like-minded individuals. And if you manage to activate a passion, that's when really, really cool things can happen. Everybody know who this is? Spock, right, from Star Trek. Any Trekkies in the room here? That's Europe. In North America, there will be quite a few more. So in Canada, there is this town called Vulcan. And of course, you know, Trekkies know that Vulcan is the planet where Spock's from, right? So what did Vulcan do? Vulcan is this tiny little community in Alberta. It's a farm community. There's really not a lot going on over there. A few hundred people live there. It's, you know, a few hours from Calgary. Not exactly a tourism mecca, but they do have the name Vulcan. So what did they do? Well, they built a replica of the Enterprise, you know, along the highway. That's where they started. And then people started to stop taking pictures of themselves. So they thought, we're onto something. And then they took their visitor center and turned it into a spaceship. And the visitor center is now effectively a Star Wars museum. You know, all the major characters have been to the visitor center, have donated memorabilia. They now have an agreement with the license holder. They're selling T-shirts. And every year, they're holding this event called Galaxy Fest, where thousands of Star Trek fans descend on this tiny little farm community in Alberta to celebrate, you know, their geekness and their passion called Star Trek. What happened? What has this done as a result for tourism? Well, you know, tourism grew from virtually zero to more than 25,000 visitors to the visitor center a year. That's not a lot for a place like London, but it's massive for a place like Vulcan, Alberta. And in the beginning, you can imagine all these farmers in town thinking, okay, what do we do with this? But as all these people just kept coming, you know, the whole town is now turned into a Star Trek, you know, fan experience. But it's still very local. So the butcher shop is now called, you know, the Vulcan Butcher Shop has the Star Trek logo. And, you know, the barber shop does something clever. But even City Hall jumped onto this. City Hall is now called Galaxy Headquarters instead of City Hall. And they're now talking to a developer who wants to put a resort hotel in Vulcan just to support all the Trekkies that are visiting this tiny little town. And that's what I mean with activating a passion. If you can find for your business, if you can find for your destination, what are the passions that people will respond to, they'll go for miles, they'll go on pilgrimages to come and visit you. So instead of this generic marketing, find those niches, activate the passion, and you know the consumers will do the marketing for you through word of mouth. So that's what I have to say. Thank you very much. Please stay in touch. Presentation switch.
Thank you. Brilliant.
Thank you, William. That was a fantastic presentation, and I have lots of questions, but I'm not going to ask them now. We're going to ask the next speaker to come up, which is Nim Singh. Happy coincidence, she's also Dutch like William, but both representing Canada now. And Nim I've known for ages since the Dutch Tourist Board, and now she's head of media and comms for the Canadian Tourist Board, the CTC in the UK. And I'll hand you over to Nim.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Before I start, I just wanted to ask a quick question. How many bloggers are in the room? And how many destination PRs or PR agencies? So we have a good mix, okay. When I was invited to come and talk at this particular panel, I was kind of a bit perplexed as to what I was going to talk about, to be honest, but I decided that I wasn't going to talk about what the CTC does on Facebook or Twitter or what we do with YouTube. Those are all sort of happening between ourselves and head office, and that I'd focus a little bit on how we've worked along the years with bloggers. And I have to say I feel a little bit of a fraud up here because I'm not an expert. I'm having to learn as I go along. There are no training courses in how to work with bloggers or what you should be doing. So it's been a sort of a bit of a slow process, and tourist boards are big organisations, and we're government bodies, and sometimes they're like big ships that are sailing along perfectly happily, and then something happens and you have to turn the ship a little bit, and that can take quite a long time. So however much I may be engaging with the blogging community, sometimes there's some explaining that needs doing higher up along the line, or further with the industry over in Canada to help everybody along. So there's a sort of a two-way thing going on at the moment. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experiences. That's not necessarily the same as every tourist board. I think we're all maybe finding our way individually. I don't think we're even talking, well, I'm certainly not having conversations with other tourist boards about how we deal with this change, and I'm realizing I probably should be. So the other realization is that although there's this whole new area kind of coming alive, we're not being given extra resources to work on it. There are no extra people being put in place, and it is still just me doing the PR here in the UK, working with my provinces, working with the partners. So suddenly the number of people that I am engaging with and getting to know is increasing vastly. And sometimes I feel like I need a duplicate of me. This week was a prime example. So many other events going on in the evenings, and I can't be in two places. So, yeah. But the reality is, right now, in a lot of tourist boards, it's just been added to the workload. It's not necessarily that we've been given extra HR manpower to kind of grow our networks, I suppose. So for me, back in 2009, I suddenly kind of went, oh my God, there's this whole thing happening, and how do I cope with it, and how do I deal with it? And we brought in a social media expert to run a little workshop in our office. I invited all the provinces along, and we had a day. And at the end of the day, I was probably even more freaked out than I was at the beginning of the day, because I realized there was this whole area that I hadn't really done very much with. And I signed up to Twitter immediately, all excitedly. It was probably about 6 or 8 months later before I actually did anything with it. But so there I was, and then it was like, okay, then there's the bloggers, and then I'm supposed to be monitoring all this, and then I'm supposed, when am I going to do all this stuff? I mean, I come in the morning, my email inbox is up to here already, my phone starts ringing, my head office is asking for reports, I'm trying to work with journalists on press strips and TV and radio. But somehow or other, you seem to find the capability to tweak little extra hours and little bits and pieces here. And we sort of moved forward from that point in that from 2009, we went straight into the Olympics, and I was lucky enough to be at the Olympics for 3 weeks, working in some of the press offices. And it really wasn't until I returned from the Olympics that we really moved forward. And then I decided to focus originally on food bloggers. Because I thought it was a slightly smaller group. I could probably get to know them, first of all. We planned an event collectively with all the provinces for the end of the year where we would invite bloggers to come along and spend an evening with us cooking with Canadian products and really just getting to know each other. I then spent about 3 months researching food blogs, and it was time-consuming. There was a lot of time looking at lists, going and looking at blogs, and then starting a dialogue with people. And fortunately, food is a particular passion of mine, so it was quite easy to start a dialogue. But starting to build that relationship and say, oh, you wrote this blog about XYZ, and I'm really interested in that, or did you know that XYZ? So started to build the dialogue. And at the end of that year, we hosted this event, cooking event, and then we had about 25 bloggers signed up to come. About 15 actually showed, but that was fine. And from there, we probably took a relationship forward with about 5 of them, 4 of whom who have now since been to Canada and experienced Canadian food and wine in some way or other. At the same time as that was going on at the end of 2010, as my attention started to turn to the travel bloggers. And I was very fortunate, and I was given the opportunity to sponsor a blogging event, which was the TBU event in Manchester, and I know I met some of you there for the first time, and that was probably the best thing I could have done. For one, I learnt a lot about the blogging community. obviously I got to meet them face to face. And from there, conversations, relationships have built up. And I know there was a lot of dialogue at that event about, is it journalists versus bloggers versus PR? There was a lot of use of versus. And I don't get that word. I think we're all in this together, and that it's about the relationships you have with people, exactly the same as having relationships with travel writers. And you need to invest the time to build those relationships. So I didn't really understand the versus word, but I see it coming up all over the place. But from Manchester, we took about 5 contacts that I made there that we've sort of progressed with. And in fact, one of those bloggers was invited then to come to Canada to an event, a media event we host annually, to come and talk on a panel about blogging. Because whilst all this is going on over here, the community, the PR community in Canada is also having to learn about this. So actually by being able to bring a blogger to talk on a panel discussion about the Valencia trip as a case study, about what they need from press trips, all those sort of things. So you putting your thumbs up there. That it was really useful to show the Canadian industry that they need to open their minds to the blogging community. And that sort of moved things forward, because now I think at this event next year there will be a completely separate blogging workshop. So rather than one person on a panel of all different types of media, there's going to be a separate blogging workshop for the PR industry in Canada to learn about, as I said, what bloggers need on press trips, because it's quite different, etc. So in terms of blogging, we don't work with all travel journalists. There's sometimes I get approaches where I say, no, it doesn't really fit, can't really do that right now. It's not the right audience, not the right time of year. And it will be the same with bloggers. There'll be times when we will say no, and there'll be times when we will be able to say yes. But I see it very much as developing the relationships. It's a lot of time, and but we are slowly moving forward. We've started to invite bloggers to any media event that we host here in London or anywhere around the UK. We now include bloggers on those invite lists, and that didn't happen in 2009. 2010, maybe 1 or 2, but from here on in, it's just considered a natural part of what we do. And talking about opportunistic, as William was saying, obviously we had the fantastic opportunity this year of the royal visit to Canada, and we did use bloggers. We got 2 bloggers secured onto the media accreditation for the Royal Pack, I suppose, that's what I call them. And they followed the royal couple and blogged every day as to where they were, what they were doing, and linking into tourist opportunities and tourist things in the places they were visiting. So that was a sort of opportunistic grab of, we were only given like 4 months' notice, and it was like, well, maybe this would be a way of working with bloggers to spread the message. So, and looking ahead, I think next year in 2012, I finally sort of convinced my head office to perhaps consider a global blogging trip of some sort to bring bloggers from all over the world into Canada. And I sort of see I gather within my head office, I'm a bit of the ambassador for the blogging community. And as I said, it goes to that education process of helping them understand what it can mean for us. Our biggest challenge remains measurement, and how do we show and show the value and the in print. It's very easy with the ad equivalency, and I think we're all struggling to be able to show our bosses further up along the line what the value actually is and the return actually is. But we will get there. But for now, yes, Canada, I just wanted to show you that it's been a slow process. It is a big ship, but I'm on the case. So, thank you.
Thanks, Nim. I think that's a question that a lot of people will understand is lack of resource, because this has come along in only 2 or 3 years' time. So how on earth could you have planned and budgeted for financial year 2 years in advance. You say it's coming on now. Do you use any digital agencies in the UK at all? Just you, but you say that the PR members of the Canadian Tourist Commission at home, are they going to create a digital agency within the CTC?
No, we do have a digital, at our head office there is a digital, but they're more looking at Facebook and Twitter. And I think the global trip will fall under their remit. Okay. But that's kind of coming from me and some of my other partners around the world that we need to be doing that. So.
Well, congratulations on getting a global blogging trip to Canada going. That's the next step. Are there any other individual trips you've already planned for people from the UK to go to Canada?
Yes, we had the 3 food bloggers, and we had the 2 bloggers that came with us to the media trip or the media event that we host annually, and also from the Manchester. We've gone a little bit down the specialist route again, so we had a particular train blogger who's obviously Canada is famous for its train journeys, so we hooked in with him to get him on a number of train journeys across Canada. So it's slowly, but I guess some of it is niche little areas right now.
Okay, well, thanks for that. So Joe Wiggle, who's already started the presentation remotely, is going to talk more about specifics from a provincial or province point of view for Quebec. And Joe is Destination Quebec. Title?
Director of Tourism for the UK.
There you go.
Well, bonjour, everybody. Nim and I, before we came up here, both said to each other, what are we doing here? We don't know anything about this stuff. We're just finding our own way. And I must say, it's an exciting journey because very much to reiterate what Nim says, with all of us working in the tourism industry, whether we have nice titles like Director of Tourism or whatever, the resources are small, and they're small from a point of view of people. And whether you're starting to look at social media, whether it's Twitter or bloggers or Facebook and anything else, the day job is still there. So please be patient with us, especially those of us in the tourist boards and small provincial tourist boards like ours, like the province of Quebec, which is not necessarily the #1 leading destination out of the UK yet, but hey, we're doing well. So passing very quickly, because I'm aware of the time too, is that we started out by developing a social media program originally in the head office in Quebec, and then it was suddenly put on hold. Okay, now, as Nim rightly said, we work for ministries, we work for governments, people come and go and things change. So in the meantime, with my colleagues in Montreal and in the CTC in London, we've had some very successful events have taken place. And one of the things which was done in the beginning of, at the end of last year, so almost totally a year ago now, we actually did a competition for bloggers to enter, and the winner was a guy called Jules Stone, as you see mentioned up here. And today I'm just going to give you a couple of case studies very quickly about what we have done with bloggers so far. And Jules Stone actually entered the competition, and the prize was to win a holiday to Montreal. Now, Tourism Quebec got involved, so we got him beyond Montreal and into other parts of the province. But how did he go about winning this prize, in fact, without ever going to Quebec? What he actually did was he used his blog. He was already a well-known blogger. And according to the influencesintravel.com website, he's at that time was the 24th most influential travel tweeter, and possibly the #1 according to the ranking. But he's also writes his own blogs on train. He's a train nerd. He's a travel blogger, as a travel writer, and a freelance lifestyle journalist, he calls himself. And in fact, he was very smart. And what we found, particularly for Quebec, was that he went to the fellow people on social media that he was already chatting to and said, I want to win a prize, and the thing is, I have to come up with the 25 best things to do if you visit Montreal. But he didn't do the research himself. He got everybody else from Canada, from the UK, throughout the whole social media site to talk about Montreal, to talk about Quebec, and come back to him. So he was couch surfing his way around Canada, around Quebec, and actually got people to give him what were their favorite things to do. And he came up with the winning entry, and the competition he won was given to him as he was selected as the prize winner for this particular blog on it. And he started out by putting 25 things to do before you're dead, which you have to do in Montreal and Quebec. Since then, it became 45 things to do because things just kept growing. Virally, we went from offering a little prize, which was a short weekend in Quebec. Hello. There we go. So it was a short trip, a couple of nights in Montreal and so on. Tourism Quebec then got involved. My office got involved, and with the help of our colleagues, we then sent this chap on to other parts of Quebec and Quebec City, and to do all sorts of winter experiences, because we are trying to promote winter beyond ski for Quebec, Ski Plus. So he went on to Le Massif and particularly find out more about the trains, because as you may have seen in his original in one of the original slides, he is, in fact, a big train nerd. So from this, why did we invite this guy to go beyond his prize? What would we get out of it as a tourist board? That's one thing that we as tourist boards have to do more of. We now have to tell our bosses why we're spending their money and what they're going to get from it. It would be lovely to say, please come all of you to Quebec. I'd love you all to come to Quebec. But unless I can prove why I'm inviting you, I can't justify the expense. And there's no such thing as a free ride anymore. The airlines don't give us money to take you, and the hotels don't give us free rooms. We pay for it all. So I have to prove it. But this guy, we came up with a really great agreement with him. He agreed to write and publish 4 blogs of 700 words, as you can see. And he actually, these would then link back to our own bonjourquebec.co.uk website, and with other partners who were sponsoring us and giving us hotels and the train ride in Le Massif and so on. Each blog, because he already is an influencer, because he already has a following, we were through the other people who were beginning to follow him because of the initial competition entry and prize he'd won. We then found that we were getting a lot more interest from various different sites. And we just have 3 examples here of some of the blogs he wrote and some of the sites that then it appeared on, like Flightster and whygotocanada.com. And each topic, as you can see from there, are different topics about different kinds of things he actually saw and did. So from me, from a tourist board, from just hosting him for a few extra days, we've actually reached a far broader audience, and this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to reach a far broader audience of people that I wouldn't necessarily be able to reach myself. One, because they wouldn't necessarily follow me when I'm blogging, but they will follow this guy because he's an influencer. But he has yet again taken us further forward. The second case study is a chap called Julian Beecroft, and this is a totally different one. When I was asked to come on the panel, mad as I was sitting in a bar with our friend here, and we were talking about the fact that when you do print media, you frequently find that the article appears and it's gone. There it is, gone. And at the same time, the newspaper will not necessarily print another article about your destination or even about the country again for another year. They have so many stories to file that they can't. So, but with the blogging world and the social media world and the Twitter and the tweets and Twitters and all the rest of it, we're finding that stories and ideas not only spread virally through all those different mediums, but also they stay around a lot longer. People can find it a lot longer. So it is essential for people like me who really knew nothing about this world till probably last year or so, that I get involved and I invite people along to explain to me and my bosses why we should be supporting bloggers, tweeters, and all the social media aspects. Naturally, from our head office, Facebook, Twitter, that's all been done for a while from our website. Now, this chap, he's different. He's not a travel writer. And coming back to Nim's point, which was very important, we're looking at a very broad audience. You know, we're not just going to talk to people who want to travel. We're going to talk to everybody, because eventually everybody is going to be a traveller. Everyone wants to go on vacation. Everybody wants to see somewhere new or somewhere different. If you're a foodie, with Nim, for example, the bloggers, the food bloggers, you know, Quebec's a great food destination. Canada's a great food destination. So a blogger is going to be someone who will, if he's going to have an audience of food who read their blog and enjoy food, they're going to think, oh, Canada, why would anyone ever think of Canada for food? But particularly, that's another area. Julian, on the other hand, is a totally different kettle of fish. He writes about art. Why is that relevant? Well, because in this particular case, the Dulwich Picture Gallery is actually exhibiting a series of the group of 7 artists from Canada, and of which there are several paintings that were done by one of the Quebec group of 7. Now, again, with this particular blogger, we wanted to extend it so that he wasn't just going to write about the paintings that are going to be there, but about why go to Quebec. So we sent him there. We showed him. He actually travelled, obviously, throughout Canada. But at this particular one, we actually focused on him to get him to visit the region and do blogs while he was there and continue on to expand and write about Quebec in far more detail beyond the paintings. So we actually, with my PR company, who works just for the province of Quebec with me, she actually managed to get Julian some additional commissions. And this is where social media is important, that, again, to repeat what Nim was saying, we have to extend beyond. We can't just think it's print versus online. It's, tweeting rather than Facebook. We need to embrace all these medium and have an integrated strategy so that one will benefit the other. And so with Julian, who started out going on as just to do a blog, we managed to get him some articles which were then went onto Guardian Online, into Real Travel magazine, and those articles appeared just last week in The Guardian. And on from there was actually a promotion with the Telegraph, with a competition and a prize, leaflets given out at the Dulwich Picture Gallery, and also a Telegraph online article and competition, which was done jointly between us all. And then his blog. When he actually wrote the blog about where he did and what he saw and wrote, the first one was on the 16th of September. Good old Google Analytics, they give us all kinds of really interesting things. We could see spikes in the visitors, the number of visitors to the Dulwich Picture Gallery blog about this particular article in this particular region, the Charlevoix, which is one of the regions that the paintings feature in the art gallery's exhibition. What was the most interesting thing about the Google Analytics was the first time you can definitely see the spikes where people saw the blog and then stayed and viewed, and the number of visitors and who actually, the unique page views. But also what was interesting was the length of time these people spent on it. Now, you may say, as a tourist board, why are you worried about people who are interested in art? Well, as far as I'm concerned, anyone who may be able to afford travel to Canada and who appreciates art is probably the same target audience. So I know we're very short on time. I don't think we'll be able to go to other examples or case studies this time, but just to say that we're looking at working obviously very closely with our colleagues in CTC and in the provinces. We do obviously work with Facebook and with Twitter and various different operators and different campaigns. And we're developing new ones which will incorporate visual, video, with tour operators, sending out bloggers and writers to attach various different, inspire new audiences. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to reach a new target audience, not just the generic one who is typically known for travelling to Canada, but beyond. So Quebec actually does its own little Twitter from time to time, but through lack of resources, we can't do very much of it. So what do? We rely on other people, and we get other people to help us. At the ski show, seems only yesterday, but a couple of weeks ago, we then again did a few, we have had some of our friends at Crystal, for example, who have retweeted, blogged, and added to their Facebook photos that they took on our stand of our Huskies and for the Ski Quebec Plus. Anyway, all I can say is that it would be great to be able to speak to you longer. I wish I knew more about it. I'm still learning. We're all still learning. But we're always interested to see how we can evolve and develop what we're doing. However, the only thing that everyone is going to say to me in my head office is, how do we prove what the return is? With our videos that we've been doing over this year, We were just calculating today that, very scientifically, we just had a quick add up, but with the videos which we've been using on our Facebook, our Twitter, and through our bloggers, that the recent estimate of how much we've done recently in this year was over £2 million worth of visibility.
That's the first figure I've ever heard put on ROI. Congratulations.
My bosses don't give me the money otherwise.
Joe,
Thank
quick
you.
hand for Joe. And if there's any consolation, KLM yesterday employed 30 people on social media, and they've no idea what ROI they're getting either. So that's clearly one that's going to continue for a long, long time. But really interesting, and congratulations for obviously a political battle with your bosses back home, but getting individual successes. And I'm assuming from what you're saying that the individual successes are increasing, that they are getting it more. I also know that Joe uses, for example, a video company based in the UK that she employs to take out to Canada to film there with their own British presenter to come back and embed on on the Canadian site in the UK.
It's getting a bit late. So
It is. And also that gets embedded on other tour operators' sites. So that's really interesting. So just a couple, I know we are waiting for the next session, but William, I just wanted to come back to your point about accidental social media, which you've discovered in the past. Have you found out all the tricks, do you think, by now, or are there still some to come around the corner?
If I did, then I wouldn't be sitting here. No, but I think there's things that you can take, there's opportunities, all the time. Some of you probably have seen the Banff squirrel, this picture of some holiday makers in Banff National Park. They're setting up the camera on self-timer, and just before the picture goes up, a squirrel pops his head up and is in front of the picture. Went globally around the world. BAMS did a really good job taking that photo and really using it as a promotional opportunity. So scanning and listening to what's out there is really important.
And the very interesting examples of community social media, where you have your man going out to the villages, that's something that clearly can develop, not just across Canada, but in other areas as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everybody's now a content producer, and that's the point. And I think over the last 2 days, what I've observed is that, traditional travel media, right, is kind of struggling with the fact that all of a sudden there is so many more content producer, whether they're professional or amateur. But, as I explained, if somebody is extremely passionate about what they do, it comes through in their writing, it comes through in their content. And, and when they speak to a particular audience, that's all that matters.
I think we're going to leave it there. I thought there were three very interesting speakers and speeches about where we are with tourist boards. They're clearly struggling to get their heads around cost, ROI, resource, types of different media, but I'd say we come back in a year or two's time, we've got a completely different story. Thank you very much to the speakers of the Canada case study.